Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual career spotlight on behalf of Chinook School Division and the Regina Industry Education Council. My name is Lisa Kuntz-Samanuk, and I am the Chinook School Division Industry Education Program Facilitator. Before we begin our spotlight today, I'd remind students to take a moment following the presentation to complete the brief student survey and be entered into a draw for $50. Your feedback is important in helping us to arrange future spotlights. We will also have some time at the end of the presentation today for you to ask any questions, or you may contact Justine directly. She'll provide her information at the end of the session. For those of you just joining us, we are pleased to bring you entrepreneurs, country music entertainer, and finance student, Justine Sletten. Justine comes to us from Hazlet and is currently studying finance at Edwards School of Business in the U of S in Saskatoon. She's been performing since the age of 14 and is a winner of the Global Country Star Search in 2018, winning the opportunity to travel to Nashville. While she was there, she worked with industry professionals and competed in an international competition, winning first in songwriting and second in performance. Her debut EP, Groundbreaking, spent its first 3 days in the top 10 country albums in Canada on iTunes. In 2020, she released 2 new singles. Justine is excited to share her experiences with you while highlighting how hard work and determination will give you the opportunity to work in a career that you are passionate about. If you love to entertain others through music and singing, or have ever dreamed of becoming a country music singer while managing your own business and setting your own hours, then Justine's Career Spotlight is certain to inspire you and leave you with a number of career paths to intrigue your creative side. As a current finance student at Edwards School of Business, she will share how her ongoing education fits into her future career goals as well. Feel free to check out her website, Justine Sletten. Please join me in welcoming Justine here with us this afternoon. Take it away, Justine.
Thank you very much. All right, so, hold on. There we go. So my name is Justine Sletten, and I'm going to discuss today my career path as a musician, and it has a little bit of a different twist. So music's always been a huge part of my life, and at a young age, I would always have concerts on our back deck for my family, and whenever we had company over, I would sit them all down on the couch and perform whatever song I knew at the time. And so seeing that this was a passion for me, my parents signed me up for classical vocal training at the age of 9. And then from this point forward, I competed in music festivals all throughout high school. And music festivals are an amazing way to provide a platform for young musicians to perform. These events happen across the province, largely through the volunteer work of local music enthusiasts. And I can't begin to express my gratitude for the work of these volunteers, as without music festivals across our province, developing young musicians would be immeasurably harder. So around the age of 14, I began to diversify my performances. And as a teenager, singing in the classical style wasn't always something that I was really proud of. I wanted to pursue something a little bit more cool. So around that time, I entered in a competition focused in the country music genre and ended up winning that competition. And with the cash that I won, I bought my first guitar. And this was a monumental win for me, not only because I was able to acquire my first guitar, but also because it gave me a taste for the success in the music industry. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't love it. And in grade 10, my art teacher brought guitars into our classroom, and this coincided nicely with my new guitar. So it was around that time that I began to take guitar a little more seriously. After graduating high school, I went into a music degree at the U of S, but soon after realized that that particular program was very strong education focus, and that wasn't really something that I was interested in. So I switched into a business degree and discovered my second passion. So I'm now in my second last year of finance at the Edwards School of Business. So my formal education in music consists of lessons I've taken from the ages of 9 to 18 in the classical music genre. I've also had a singing coach for my country music, and she also assisted with some stage performance. Finally, I took lessons in both piano and guitar for the better part of my youth. And studying music at the U of S did help to expand my knowledge in classical training, but also helped me learn some helpful aspects regarding performance that were helpful in the country music genre. I think it sometimes comes to a surprise how technical singing can be to some people. Raw talent is plentiful, but developing a voice so that it can be used at its peak for long periods of time takes quite a bit of practice and training. Anyone who's ever given a car concert or in a long car ride might be able to connect to how your voice feels strained after that. So vocal training attempts to teach singers how to avoid that damage to your vocal cords and build a longevity so that your voice can serve you for years to come. As I started to explore country music as more of a serious career, I began to seek out learning opportunities within the industry. I attended various industry events and seminars put on by provincial and national music associations, which I'll delve into a little bit later. And as far as my education in business, the first 2 years at Edwards are all general study, where you can learn a wide variety of information in topics such as finance, marketing, accounting, human resource, and supply chain. So originally, I felt that a business degree would be a good complement to my interests in pursuing a music career. However, at the end of my second year, I felt drawn to the area of finance, so I decided on pursuing that as my major. And then third and fourth year in business are focused mainly on the major of your choice, so finance in my case. But there's also some room to take classes in other majors if you please. And then at the end of my studies, I'll have a degree in commerce, which I believe to be one of the most versatile degrees, allowing me to pursue a vast variety of opportunities, both within or not even connected to music. So there's not necessarily a set career path for music, but it varies from person to person. There's a school of thought within the music industry that studying what has worked for others is dangerous because what works well for one person might completely fail for the next. So in the path to success, it'll look different for everyone. However, the main goal of all artists is to build a committed following so that you can count on your fans to buy your music and share your music without question. This is why Taylor Swift is so successful. Her following is massive, and they are a committed group that buys her music before they even hear it. And I will say that I am one of those crazy Taylor Swift fans, so I'll reference her a few times in this presentation. It's also important to note that within the music industry itself, there are numerous careers that one could pursue. Being a musician or a vocalist is only one small part of the industry. I'm sure it's like this with many industries, but until you become involved in the music community, it's hard to understand all of the opportunities that exist in the field. And even if you have no music ability whatsoever, you could still pursue a career in the music industry, maybe as a booking agent or a radio tracker, which are both hugely impactful careers that require no music ability whatsoever. One of the most valuable pieces of advice I've been given on my journey is that the music industry is mainly about connections. I spent a large majority of my youth perfecting the technical side of the music skills, thinking that the talent was the most important aspect. And I learned later in my journey that it's not as much about your talent, but more about how well you can connect with people. Of course, talent and ability are a factor, but having a lot of connections and being able to easily connect with your audience in performances and on your social media are actually more critical to building a successful career. The best way to make these connections is to be a social butterfly at networking events, which quite honestly was not my strong suit when I started out, and it's still something that I'm constantly working on. And believe it or not, I'm generally a fairly shy person until I get to know the people that I'm with. And at these networking events, you're not there for long periods of time, so it's mainly based on first impressions. So this area that I've really had to focus on in my career, it's important part to identify the places that you need to grow and then use your strengths, and then you're constantly developing your areas of weakness. I think people have an idea of what a musician's life looks like. And maybe before my time, it was very much touring, hotel life, and record sales. But with the advent of social media, I believe that the entire industry was turned on its head. Prior to social media, musicians were seeking a record deal, and becoming signed by a label was only way to make it. And so now independent artists or indie artists can be just as successful as signed artists and sometimes even more successful. As I said earlier, though every musician's path is different, the ways that people make it are now varied as artists themselves. I'll first tell you that the level of success that I have achieved is still considered pretty low on the ladder of success. However, I'm happy to tell you that some of my day-to-day activities when it comes to music, probably my favorite part of my career is recording music. I recorded my first EP, which is a short version of an album, when I was about 15. And that album consists of all original songs that I wrote. And I worked with a small independent producer in Saskatoon. And I had a really good first experience. And then shortly after that, I decided that songwriting wasn't really an area that I excelled at. And then since then, I've only released songs that were written by others. So the recording process. So when I'm ready to record a new song, I'll contact my producers that I'll now work exclusively with. And I ask him to find some songs for me. So he reaches out to his contacts and presents me with a bunch of different song choices. And choosing the song is a really fun process. So normally the producer will send me like 9 to 12 songs. And the process that I go through is I'll listen to them all once through. And then normally immediately after that first listen, I'll have 3 to 4 favorites. And then I'll take a few days and listen to them a lot and then slowly continue to narrow it down. And it normally comes down to between 2 songs, which is always the hardest decision. And it's hard to say exactly what the deciding factor is, but one of the main things is which song I think will suit my voice the best. And then the rest of the decision is pretty much based on which song speaks to me the most, what the message is, kind of things like that. So once the decision has been made, I'll start preparing the song, which basically means that I'll practice it until I feel like I can do it justice. And then once I'm ready to go, I'll contact my producer and let him know that I'm ready. And then a date is set to lay the tracks, which ultimately means that all the musicians, such as the guitar, bass, and drums, will all get together and play their parts. And each part is recorded onto a different track. And then after laying the track, the producer will take a few weeks to put together a dub, which is like a rough copy of the song for me to practice because that's what I'm going to sing to when I go into the studio to record my part. And then a session to record one song for me is normally about 2 to 3 hours of constant singing. Normally I'll sing through the song fully a few times, and then it starts to get broken down into more parts. So I'll sing through the first verse as many times as it takes for us to get a good version. And then after we've done it so many times, if there's certain lines that I'm having trouble with, we'll go through and just do those lines. And then we'll do that with each section. So verse, chorus, verse, chorus. And then at the end, we'll normally run through the song 1 or 2 times again, just to make sure that we have a good version of every line. And then from all the sections that we recorded, the best version of each line can be cut and pasted into the song so that it sounds as best as possible. And I have to say that I feel like I'm exposing myself because before I started recording music, I thought the recording process was like the artist goes in and just sings the song over and over and over and over and over until they get it right, which is totally not the case. And this is not mentioned, but the singer's best friend, auto-tune, which can be used to fix the notes that a singer can't get quite perfect. So once the entire process is complete, the producer puts all the pieces together into the first mix of the song. And after that, he sends it to me for me to listen to. I can make any final changes, changing out certain vocal lines or adding something small, just like finishing touches. Once all the finishing touches have been made, the producer will send me the final mix. And he'll also send the final mix to the person who's going to master the song. And the purpose of mastering is to give the song a finished sound and also to make the song sound the same in the left and the right. So when you put like headphones in, for example, it'll sound like even. All right, and so now for releasing music, it can be done in many different ways. And I feel like I've tested a few different methods to varying levels of success. In all cases, the key factor to getting your song on the radio is to use a radio tracker. This is just a person who basically bugs the radio station to play their client's music. For my very first release, my mom was my radio tracker. And for an unknown artist, my first release, Off My Mind, actually did pretty well. It got played on about 14 stations across Saskatchewan and Alberta. And for 15-year-old me, it felt like I'd hit the big leagues. So hearing your music on the radio for the first time is an incomparably thrilling experience. However, I made one really major error with my first release, and that was failing to register my music. So although my songs did get a decent amount of plays, I made zero money. So I'm going to chalk that up to a life experience. So since my first EP, I've released 5 singles. For each of those singles, I've invested in a professional radio tracker, which has helped immensely. The difference here is that a professional radio tracker has existing connections that can assist in getting your songs played more widely. And I'm very proud of the fact that my music has now been played on radio stations across the country, which was a goal of mine since the early days. For my first 2 singles, I've utilized press, and that has also been quite helpful, particularly with my most current release. Particularly with my most current release, this work has allowed me to be featured by music blogs around the world and by playlist curators, which has been a new experience for me. And I'm getting ready to release my newest single to radio, and I'm hoping that the traction I've received already with the press will make it more attractive for radio stations and larger scale radio stations, which would be a step in the right direction for me. So after my first single, I learned my lesson financially, and now I register all my singles. And this is done through Sound Exchange, which is an online learning service that artists can sign up for and collect royalties to their music. And what this means is that every time a song is played, I get paid for its use. And all those streaming services like Apple Music and Spotify also pay their artists per play. Radio stations are really where an artist can start to make their money. So if you want to support an up-and-coming artist, then call your local radio station and request their song and hope they'll get added to their rotation. So the next big activity in the life of an artist is touring. And so because I'm in university, the majority of my touring happens in the summer months. And annually, I've worked throughout the year to book up my summers with festivals and other venues that book live music. Touring is actually quite an exhausting activity as it requires constant travel and nightly energy that can be draining. I think I calculated this last July, I drove 30 hours for all the performances that I had. So, but when you get up on stage and the crowd is receptive, there's no better feeling. Over and above all this, it's also important to maintain your social media presence. And this is really how artists can build a following, which is another way to make it up the ladder. Regular social media interaction is crucial to building your brand in the music industry. It's kind of like out of sight, out of mind in this regard. And believe me, it doesn't take long for an indie artist to be out of mind if they aren't constantly present. I earlier talked about the elusive record deal. This is still something that artists seek, but record labels have pulled back considerably on signing artists, as they now wait for artists to build their own brand to a significant level before they make any offers or a deal. In the early days, if an artist had promised, the label would offer them a deal and fund all that initial development in the hopes that the artist would make it big. I can see why labels operate the way they do now, as their costs are much less. The current state puts more of the responsibility on the artist to develop an array of skills needed to build a brand that really works to grow their presence in the industry. This has pros and cons from the artist's perspective, as it's hard to compete with the professionals that work for labels, but you can't access the professionals until you've been so competitive in the market that you've made a name for yourself. So this brings me to my own current state in the industry. By far, my favorite part of the business right now is performing. It's always been the thing that motivates me to do all the other things associated with the business. And in March of 2020, just days before I was supposed to play at an event for the Juno Awards in Saskatoon, the world was shut down due to COVID. This period of time hit musicians particularly hard, as touring and performing were out of the question for the better part of 2 years. That 2-year period had an interesting effect on the music industry from my perspective. You saw a thriving industry in Saskatchewan suddenly shrink to something that was unrecognizable from its former self. I believe that many artists were forced to do some soul searching and determine their level of commitment to proceed. Many artists did not recover from the pandemic, and to be honest, I'm not exactly sure where I stand yet. Throughout the pandemic, I've continued to release music that was the only outlet available for artists throughout the pandemic. I've learned a lot about that process and what works well and what doesn't, so for that, I'm very thankful. However, for that 2-year period, I focused mainly on my university degree and began to see a future for myself in that regarding as well. I always say that the wonderful thing about being young is that I can keep my options open, and I fully intend to do that. I can't envision my life without any music in it at all, but I am not exactly sure how it manifests itself in my life yet. To be completely honest, my main determination out of the pandemic is that I would truly like to lead a normal life, and the level of success musicians can take on a very unique look. And my main consideration at this point is, would I be happy with all aspects of that? So for example, being known is nice, but at the outset, if you reach a level of success where you can't walk your dog without a big hat and sunglasses, that's not exactly what I picture for my life. Having said that, I know there are many ways that I could still maintain my love for music in some form without gaining that level of recognition. I think one of the main things I've learned is that all artists go through periods of time when they question their involvement in the industry, and it's a very intimate act to put your creations out there into the world. And sometimes when they don't get the recognition that you thought they would, it can be tough to fathom. Continuing in this industry despite these moments is what truly sets the successful artist apart. Developing that thick skin that allows you to tell yourself that you can't please everyone is crucial. So the majority of the dirty work, which includes like social media, booking gigs, planning releases, practicing for gigs, are mostly done remotely. Most things are done by email or phone when it comes to contacting people now. And when it comes to playing gigs, the locations are always different. For me, they mostly consist of places in Saskatchewan and Alberta. These gigs are booked by simply paying attention to venues that book live music and then contacting them to see if they'd be interested in booking me for a gig. Not all venues are appropriate for my style music, so you also need to be aware of that. For example, I don't have a band as of right now, and my style is more laid back, so booking at bars is not a great option for me. Booking at the wrong venue can be detrimental because if a crowd is expecting one thing and they get something very different, it could result in a bad reaction from the crowd, which I'm sure you can all agree is a situation that no artist would want to put themselves in. As a side note, one of my crowning achievements is the opportunity that I had to perform in Nashville when I was 18. Being in that environment as a budding musician was like visiting the Holy Land, and to this day, it's one of my favorite memories. All my recording is done in Saskatoon, and I've been working with Bart McKay for several years. He does a really good job at bringing out the best in me, so I'd have trouble making the move to a new producer. Interestingly, each producer gives their own unique feel to the music that they are creating. If you listen to my very first EP, it was recorded by a producer who had a background in hard rock with his own career, and you can kind of feel that in the music. All of my other releases have been with Bart, and they all have a similar feel as well. And once again, this business of creating is a very personal one, not just for the artist, but everyone that's involved. Although my producer is in Saskatoon, this digital world has allowed him to access talent from across the country. And so I've had musicians that play on my songs from all over Canada, which is always a cool thing to think about. The biggest lesson I've learned from playing at many different venues is that you need to be prepared for anything and everything. Over the years, the equipment that I've acquired has expanded, as I've had several situations in which I've arrived at the venue to find that the setup isn't what I expected it to be. So we've had to make a mad dash to the music store to find the right equipment. My sound setup is fairly basic, and it's likely something that I should invest in upgrading, as the quality of your sound at a gig can have a big effect on the audience's response to you. As of right now, my system consists of a small amp with 2 speakers that can be placed at a distance to help with the sound. So I have a mic stand, a cord for the mic, a pickup for my guitar, which is another cord, and featured in this picture on the bottom, my very fancy oh wait, I went one. There we go. My iPad holder, because when it comes to memorizing guitar chords, I have the memory of a goldfish. So there's a lot of equipment that goes into sound production. I've had a good fortune to play at a couple major shows with professional sound, and the technicality of the sound production is amazing. You always want to make good friends with the sound guys, as they have the ultimate control over how you sound, so you don't want to get on their bad side. My favorite part of using a professional sound system is a monitor, which is a speaker that sits in front of the vocalist and faces them so that they can hear themselves better. You would think that sitting in the audience, the music is so loud that there's no way that singer can't hear themselves, but with a sound system designed to project the sound into the audience, getting bounced back at the performer is harder than it seems. Plus, it's important to hear yourself so you can self-correct if you need to be, or adjust the levels of your instrument or vocals to ensure the optimal sound for your audience. At a professional concert, like if you went to see Taylor Swift, the singer has little speakers that look like hearing aids that are called in-ears that replace the external monitors and help them to hear themselves and the other musicians. In comparison to some people, I have very little info when it comes to sound production, and it's amazing how much goes into it. The dream, of course, is to have a team that specializes in sound and sets all that up for you. It's what makes a professional musician sound professional. They have experts looking after each aspect of the performance. I still have a lot to learn, but what I've shared is what I've learned thus far. As I've mentioned, from a young age, I found myself enjoying the limelight. It's a really good feeling to hear and see people enjoying your music. I love when people tell me that they like my music or that they've enjoyed my performance. It is a validation of the hard work that's gone into getting to that point. It's also very exciting for me when people message me about hearing my song on the radio. It's a good feeling as well. All throughout my classical training, my teacher would drill into me that as a singer, you need to make your audience feel something. And doing this is what distinguishes a great singer from a good singer. And I still try to think about this whenever I perform. One of the other rewards of this career is that it offers constant therapy. Music, both performing and creating, provides an outlet that allows one to pour their emotions into a song. Whether that's singing because you're happy or singing because your heart is breaking, it provides an opportunity to process emotions, which is more important now than ever. This past summer, on my summer tour, I wanted to choose a cause to promote, and I knew that there was a mental health crisis underway, so I chose the Canadian Mental Health Association. And at every show, I did a 3-song arc that promoted the importance of caring for your own mental health. And then I also talked about the services provided by the Canadian Mental Health Association, and then collected donations, and I matched that to my own tour proceeds and ultimately donated to the Canadian Mental Health Association at the end of the summer. This is one of the other major benefits of this line of work. You get to have a platform where you can share important messages that will hopefully work to make the world a better place. The last notable benefit of this industry is the amazing community of people that exist within it. I've had the opportunity to meet so many amazing, creative, supportive people in my travels with music, and it's truly the best part of this work. The world is still full of amazing people, and music tends to bring them together. Artists in this industry get to experience that firsthand. So there's no doubt that this industry has its fair share of challenges. I've alluded to the fact that this is a very personal journey. Putting yourself out there is terrifying at the best of times. Successful musicians need to develop a level of resilience that is unparalleled in many cases. The main challenge of pursuing a career in this industry is that it does not have a straight path to success. For example, if you were to become a music teacher, you would get your degree, get a job, and within that job, you would work to become the best you can be. It's a very linear path. In the music industry, you can work to become the best, and it still might not result in anything. If the music that you love does not gain popularity, then you'll have to further ahead than what you've started. And you'll need to find a balance between making music that you love and also music that you believe will be loved by the general public. Also, the timing of your social media posts, your promotional activities, and most importantly, your song releases can have a major impact on your success. For example, God help the artists who choose to release on the same day as Taylor Swift. Your release will get totally lost. It's also important to know what other Canadian artists are releasing songs, as radios have to pick up a certain amount of Canadian content. So if you release at the same time as a bunch of other Canadian artists, then the competition will become more fierce for those spots. If you can wait until the number of Canadian releases is lower, then you can have a better chance at grabbing one of those spots on the radio. The other thing to consider is that you never really know exactly what's going to gain popularity. You know what type of music is popular at the time, but it's also evident throughout the history of music that a well-timed, unusual release can gain momentum in a big way, such as Billie Eilish. The other main challenge is that as an independent artist, you need to be constantly present on social media, touring and promoting yourself. The issue is that many of these activities don't pay, so it's something that you need to do while you're trying to make some money in other ways. In my opinion, this is one of the major barriers to success in this industry. And finally, I've addressed the challenges of COVID a bit. It was definitely a period of time wherein musicians were tested, and I believe many were forced to question their commitment to the industry. And the result of this is still yet to be seen in many cases, including my own. So there isn't exactly a set salary for the career as a musician. This wouldn't be the case for all jobs in the music industry, but as there's many jobs that would be labeled more stable salary-wise. So in the very early days of my career, participating in contests and competitions were a main source of my income. Contest prizes obviously vary based on the competition and the size of the organization putting it on. However, they are a very effective way for young artists to make a little bit of money, but more importantly, to allow for some exposure, which might lead to performances in the future. They also help to promote streaming your online music, which leads to income as well. However, in order for competitions to be a source of income, one needs to be successful within those events. So although competitions can be good in certain ways, it's definitely not the easiest and most secure way to make money. Releasing a song that is successful at radio pays royalties that can be your largest form of income. However, the instability that I spoke of earlier comes into play here, as no one has any idea how successful a song will be until it happens. So when you release a song, you just have to hope for the best and see what happens. In regards to royalties, these are a form of income for creative works. There are 3 different types of royalties. The first is called rights owner, and these are paid if you own the master of the song. The second is the featured artist, which is referring to the performer of the song. And so for the rights owner, if you're signed to a label, normally the rights owner royalties will go to the label, but no matter if you're signed to a label, the artists will get the performer royalties. The last type is songwriter royalties, which obviously belong to the people that own the song. Royalties are tricky in that the ones that I collect, which are rights owner and featured artist, there is really no way of knowing what amount of money is coming from what station. So at the end of every month, I receive a statement from Sound Exchange, which is the name of the royalty distributor that I use. And it shows me a lump sum of money for the last month. And now that doesn't necessarily mean that all the money is from my song being played in the last month, because all radio stations report at different times. For example, my song could have played on a radio station in Moose Jaw in May, and because they don't report until September, I'm receiving that money at the end of September, even though it was played in May. And on the same statement, I could be getting royalties for a station that my song played on last month. This pretty much means that when I first release a song to radio, I have no idea when I will start receiving royalties and when they will end. I can make a rough estimate based on a royalty statement from the past, but there is no exact way to know. Don't worry if this seems a little bit confusing. I've released songs to radio almost 10 times, and I didn't understand until a couple songs ago. And there are still some things that aren't completely clear to me. My point in saying this is to make it clear that it's all a learning curve and it comes with time. My other main source of income is performances, which is not surprisingly also dependent on a few things. The first is whether or not I'm playing shows, which is an obvious one. But I find that during the year, while I'm a full-time student, I don't have as much time to perform, and therefore I'm not making as much money from performances. Also, during the year when I'm in school, there generally isn't as much opportunities for performances as during the summer when there's lots of festivals and events happening where they hire live music. If I had more free time during the year, I might find there are more opportunities than I had originally thought, but generally it has a lot to do with the amount of time you have to be pounding the pavement to search for performance opportunities. Overall, I feel there's a strong correlation between the amount of work and money you put into your career, the more money you will make. If you are out there searching for gigs and book more gigs, or if you invest more money into the production and promotion of a new song, hopefully the more radio play attention it will receive, which leads to greater income. So there are numerous organizations that are put in place to help artists navigate this tough industry. There are several mentors available to guide artists and advise them. I remember when I was starting out talking to a few from Sask Music, and they were very helpful with things like how to collect royalties, growing social media, making connections in the industry, and providing opportunities for artists new to the scene to make a name for themselves. A few years ago, I attended a seminar put on by Sask Music where they brought in industry professionals from all different areas, such as radio, producers, and even musicians themselves, to give an insight on their life and things they have learned on their journey in the industry. The SCMA and the CCMA are organizations that put on major industry events once a year. The SCMA is for Sask artists and the CCMA is for artists all over Canada. Most other provinces have their own country music association as well. These events are huge networking opportunities, especially CCMAs, as it allows for artists to make connections all over the country. The CCMA event is 4 days long, which includes things like songwriter circles, seminars, showcases, networking events. I've been to the CCMAs once when they were in Saskatoon in 2018, and it was such an amazing event. I got to meet several big name artists, and I tried to remember to keep my cool as I had to remind myself that I was there as a musician and not a fan. I also met a lot of artists from all over Canada that are similar to me, and I learned so much from just talking with them, and it's also comforting to know that you're not the only one who feels a little bit lost sometimes. So there's abundance of opportunities in the music industry, some that I probably don't even know about myself. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that the everyday person doesn't realize. So if singing isn't your strong suit, then you can learn an instrument that would be in a band and play for the singer and still get the rush of getting to perform on stage. For example, one of my industry friends from Moose Jaw has made his career playing for Shania Twain. If you aren't a performer type and you're a behind the scenes kind of person, you could pursue a career in stage production, do all the setup, making sure everything runs smoothly during the show, and then do all the takedown after the show. We have also talked about the importance of sound production. So if that's something that interests you, that is also a major component in this industry. If you want absolutely nothing to do with the performance aspect of the industry, you could become involved in the radio tracking or promotion aspect, which would involve contacting radio stations and music blogs to get support for your client and more exposure. There's also lots of careers with support organizations like Sask Music, which would involve providing guidance to artists who are new to the music industry. If you're tech savvy and enjoy working on computers and have an ear for creating amazing music, then recording could be a very rewarding career. Recording engineers have one of the most fun jobs, in my opinion, as it would allow you to have the opportunity to work with many different musicians and create music in several different genres. In general, there are careers in the music industry for almost everyone, no matter what your interests are. So, the best insight I have into the work-life balance is my experience with school-life balance. So transitioning into university is something that takes time, and then figuring out how to balance the university workload and still having life is another learning curve. Obviously, you can't spend all your time doing work because you would go insane. Honestly, sometimes I don't spend all my time doing work and I still feel like I'm going insane. Don't let this scare you, as university also comes with lots of positives. Personally, I found it a lot easier to learn when I'm learning about something that I'm genuinely interested in. And in university, you get to do some selection on what you take based on your degree. In any career, be it as a musician or a student, it's very important to make time for yourself and doing the things that you love, because this gives your brain a break so that when you get back to work, you can operate at your fullest potential. This looks very different for everyone. Some people work better in shorter periods with shorter breaks more often, and some people work better for longer periods of time with a longer break. So you just have to do trial and error until you find out what works for you. As I discussed earlier, the majority of my work in music happens during the summer. The work that I do during the year in music is relatively normally remote. Occasionally during the year, if something comes up, I'll play a show or two, but I normally don't seek out performances while I'm in school. When it comes to releasing songs during the year, the majority of the work is done before the release. Then after is more of the just seeing how things go or leaving it to the radio tracker or the promoter. Obviously, I cannot completely abandon all music work while I'm in school, but overall, during the school year, things tend to slow down and then pick back up again in the summer when I'm not in school. As of right now, graduating university is my number one priority as it requires a lot of time and money. And I have also used this time to think about what I want my music career to look like in the future. There are lots of parts of my job as a musician that I enjoy, so it doesn't feel as much like work. I've worked a variety of different summer jobs, and I've learned that in most jobs, there'll be parts that you really enjoy and parts that you don't enjoy as much. This is the case for most things in life. For me with music, I really enjoy performing and releasing music, but I don't always feel as confident in the promotional aspect of this industry, which is why I've sought out professionals to help me with this part of the work. In school, I really enjoy doing calculations, which is a big part of the reason I enjoy finance, and I don't enjoy the theory part of finance as much. In any career, while you are doing the work, you don't enjoy as much. You just have to keep in mind that it all balances out with the stuff that you do enjoy. For me, I don't love the work of looking for gigs, but if I didn't look for gigs, then I wouldn't be able to perform as much, which is a part of the job that I really enjoy. So it has been an absolute pleasure to do this presentation. I wouldn't be living in what I talked about if I didn't take some time to do a shameless promotion of my work. Here are all the links to my social media and my website and my newest single to be released to radio shortly. Thank you very much to the Regina District Industry Education Council for asking me to present today. I hope some of the information I presented will be useful to those who are considering a career in the music industry.
Wow, that was so exciting. I learned so much, Justine. I have a few questions for you, and then I'll turn it over to maybe Mr. Ireland will have questions as well. I know that students from your high school are watching. I'm not sure if they'll put some questions in the chat, but we'll see. I have 3 questions for you. The first one is, you said it's more common than not that students may change their study plans while in post-secondary education, and you did that. So how did you go about making the decision to move from studying music education, where you thought that was the way you wanted to go in your music career, to moving to finance?
I feel like I definitely did enjoy my music education at the U of S, but yeah, as you said, it was very education focused. And so I transitioned kind of halfway through my first year. So probably in November, I was just kind of realizing that I didn't want to go all the way, all the way through a degree and then realize, oh, you know what, I don't know if I want to do this. So business had always been kind of a backup plan for me, as people that I knew in the radio industry always said that knowing the the business aspect of things was really important. So that was kind of what sparked my interest to go into business. So kind of just halfway through the semester, I applied to go into business, and then last minute applied for my classes. And then I started that in January of 2019. So yeah, that's how business came into it. And then finance kind of was an afterthought. I originally had planned to go into marketing. And then once I took the introductory marketing class, I didn't realize that was something that I was super interested in. So that was what caused me to go into finance.
Okay, good. Well, like I said, it is more common than not that students, start out on one career path and decide, find out that they're actually interested in something different, because it's hard to make those decisions when you first start out. Mm-hmm. My next question is, certainly listening to you speak, there's a lot to learn about producing music, having it played, and touring. And you said, you're continually on a learning curve. While it sounds very exciting, it sounds challenging to be on that learning curve. Can you share with us how you maintained your passion, joy, and commitment to this industry, even though the learning curve continually exists?
Yeah, I feel like it can be a struggle at sometimes, for sure. There's some, obviously, in most careers, like some discouraging factors. But I definitely feel like those supports and resources really helped me to feel like I wasn't like alone in this per se. And I also have had a ton of support from my parents, which also helps to keep me motivated. And then just as I spoke of as maybe I didn't enjoy the learning curve, it all balances out with doing the performing, which just took over everything. Like I just loved performing so much that to me at that time, it didn't really matter how much work or like whatever I had to do, like I just wanted to perform.
Yeah, good. Okay, and my last question, you spoke about the importance of making connections and networking. And this can be a challenging thing if you aren't someone who's outgoing or you're shy, but you're very still much interested in music. Do you have any advice for someone interested in this industry, even though they're shy or they might not be outgoing?
Yeah, for sure. That was 100% me. I remember at one of my very first networking events, and I was still pretty young, so my mom was with me, and she had told me that if I could shake 10 hands, that I can't remember what it was, but she said she was going to do something for me. So her encouragement really helped me with that. But my advice would be that at those networking events, like lots of people are in the same boat. So if you see someone who you think would be like around your age or that you would have like something in common with, like maybe go up to them and like don't immediately bring up music, but just like get to know them a little bit and like bring up something else. And then, the more you do it, the easier it'll get. So it's hard to start, but you just have to, think about how important it is. And also, like I said, remember that all those people are in the same boat. So, I've never had a bad experience, like going up to someone, like, how, like when you're shy, your first thought might be like, oh, like, what if they're not nice? Or like, what if they're not, so I've never had a bad experience. Everyone in the music industry is very accepting and encouraging. So that has also been a massive help to me.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Ireland, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll go with a comment and just say that, and especially with what you just said now, Justine, the advice that you've given to everyone, regarding the music industry about putting yourself out there and it's just so applicable in all other areas as well. So I really hope that any students that are listening to this, whether they're really thinking that they want to be an entertainer or not, will really take that advice to heart and apply it in any area that they decide they want to go into. They've really got to just put themselves out there.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, so true, so true. So on behalf of Chinook School Division and the Regina District Industry Education Council, I want to thank Justine for taking her time to share her career path with us, her journey with us, and being real about, the ups and downs and the choices you make and this meandering journey that you're on. There certainly is a lot to producing songs, and your career is certainly cool, and it's obvious how much you love it. It was also interesting to hear, a number of times that you mentioned you have to put yourself out there. You don't have to be somebody who isn't shy or outgoing. You can still work in the music industry. You don't have to be a singer or a musician. There's lots of opportunities that you can pursue in the music industry that maybe people hadn't considered before. Thanks again, Justine, for opening our eyes to all the possibilities of a career in the music industry. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.